Hello, welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Richard III, and we are still in what the folio calls Act 5, Scene 2, but other versions call Act 5, Scene 3 because they wanted stuff to make a little more sense and all of that sort of fun thing. But what's going on in this scene is it's the night before a war. Richard over here is king. He's killed his wife, he's killed most of his allies, he's killed tons of people going back several plays. He doesn't really have allies that actually like him left, except for maybe Catesby and Ratcliffe. Most of the army that he has is just like the English army who are there because they have to be there. They're not necessarily loyal to him. But he had sent Stanley north because Stanley said he could muster some more men in the north. He sent Stanley north to get them and is holding Lord Stanley's son hostage under threat of death if Stanley doesn't come back with his army. Now, on the other side of this impending war is Richmond, who would be the heir to the throne if the Lancasters were winning the War of the Roses, but they're not at the moment. And he is the one to whom most of Richard's allies who are still alive have defected. And a bunch of them that got killed along the way wanted to defect to Richmond's side because they didn't like what Richard was doing to the country, so they think that the power should be over there now. So Richmond and his armies had been attacking, or they're not really attacking yet. They're coming to England, getting ready to invade from all kinds of directions. And where we are in this scene, we've been going back and forth between the camps as both sides get ready for war, which is going to happen tomorrow. Like tomorrow morning, the battle is going to happen. So Richard sent somebody with a message to Lord Stanley saying, if you're not here nice and early with your army tomorrow, then your son's going to die. Somebody from Richmond's camp sent to Stanley to have him come and talk to Richmond. So he did. He went and he chatted with Richmond for a few minutes. He's like, I have about 30 seconds. You're going to wake up first thing in the morning and get over there and attack him. I'm going to tell him to expect you like mid-morning, so hopefully you can get a jump on him and he won't think that I betrayed him, and hopefully my son will still live, and I got to get back before he realizes that I'm gone. And then in yesterday's monologue, we saw Richmond saying thank you and goodbye, we'll chat more later, to Lord Stanley, who's also his father-in-law, and then praying for a successful war. That's what the monologue was yesterday, at which point he goes to sleep. And Richard is asleep on that side of the stage in his tents, and Richmond is asleep in his tents on this side of the stage. And now comes the cool, creepy, ethereal part of the play where we get a parade of ghosts. We get all of these ghosts coming back, because I don't know, the play had been too straightforward up to this point, and maybe we're not sure as the audience who we're supposed to like, because Richard did start out the play telling us that he was the villain, but earlier in the play, as the audience member, you might sort of be rooting for him or be impressed by how he was able to woo Lady Anne at Henry VI's funeral and stuff like that. So you might have kind of been cheering for him earlier, but these ghosts are going to help change your mind and tell you that by this point in the play, you should not be cheering for Richard anymore, because none of them are. So first comes in Prince Edward of Lancaster, who was Henry VI's son, and each of these ghosts follows a similar pattern. They come in and they say to Richard, you were terrible and you killed me and I hope you die. And then they go over to Richmond and they're like, I'm cheering for you, do a really good job tomorrow, yay! So Prince Edward of Lancaster comes in and does that first, and then Henry VI's ghost comes in, and then the ghost of Clarence, who was Richard's brother, who started off this whole thing because his name is George, and they said that G was going to undo King Edward. And then Rivers, Grey, and Vaughan come in, and they sort of as a group each personally threaten Richard, but then as a group they go over and they're like, yay, Richmond! And then the two young princes, Edward and Richard, who would have been next in line for the throne, but Richard had them killed so he could skirt around them, and then he married, or wants to marry, their daughter, or their sister Elizabeth, to solidify his place on the throne. But the young princes, Edward and Richard, come in and threaten and cheer on, and then Hastings does it, and then Lady Anne does it, and finally the ghost of Buckingham shows up, and he says to Richard, the first was I that helped thee to the crown, that last was I that felt thy tyranny. Oh, in the battle think on Buckingham, and die in terror of thy guiltiness. Dream on. Dream on of bloody deeds and death, fainting despair, despairing yield thy breath. I died for hope, ere I could lend thee aid. But cheer thy heart, and be thou not dismayed. God and good angels fight on Richmond's side, and Richard fall in height of all his pride. So he's just doing what everybody else did. He's cursing Richard. He's like, I was there for you, and then you killed me. Think about that while you're trying to win this war, and I hope that you are haunted and you die a horrible, bloody death. And then he goes over to Richmond, and he's like, dude, we're all on your side. Everybody is on your side. I wanted to be able to cheer for you and to help you, but I can't. But just know that God and all these angels have your back in this war. So after this thing, which I'm imagining in productions can get a little, you could have a lot of fun with this part of the play. Or if it was a movie, it could be like all kinds of trippy and weird. Like I would love to see what Baz Luhrmann would do with this particular section of this play if he were ever to direct it. But as a result of this parade of ghosts cursing Richard and then praising Richmond, Richard wakes up with a start and does tomorrow's monologue. So I'll see you then for that.